Now, folks, it's story time. There once was a king. Had 3 daughters, a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. And one day the king said to the blonde, to the brunette, to the redhead, he said, I want one of you girls to get married to the handsome neighboring prince. So the handsome neighboring prince came riding into the king's palace. He looked at the blonde, he looked at the brunette, he looked at the redhead. But did he marry the blonde, brunette, or the redhead? No, he married the king. It's a fairy story. I just got back from Florida. I was down in Miami. I wanted to be with my people. Had a wonderful time, but you have to tip for everything. I sent a bellhop down for a deck of cards. He made 52 trips. You don't give the guy enough money to park your car, he sells the car. One woman was drowning. Lifeguard pulled her out of the ocean, started giving her artificial respiration. The water was gushing from her mouth. Fellow walked by, he said, "You're doing it wrong." He said, "Don't tell me I'm doing it wrong. I'm a lifeguard. I'm a registered lifeguard. I know what I'm doing." He said, "You're doing it wrong. I'm an engineer." Now, if you want the water to stop gushing out of her mouth, you got to get her fanny out of the ocean. One woman was drowning, the lifeguard pulled her out, started giving her artificial respiration. The husband ran over and said, "What are you doing to my wife?" He said, "I'm giving her artificial respiration." He said, "Give her the real thing, I can afford it." There was a little salesman driving his car down south, a little Jewish fella. Had all the samples in the back of the car, and he was dead tired from driving, and he wanted to get a few hours sleep, and he pulled into this little town in front of the Oni Hotel, and there was a big sign right out in front of the hotel that said, "No Jews allowed." Well, he was so tired, he swallowed his pride, and he walked in, went up to the clerk, and he said, "I'd like a room." And the clerk said, "You one of them there Jews?" He says, "I'm not Jewish." He says, "You sure sound like one of them there Jews. I'm going to test you." He said, "Go ahead and test." Ask me any question. He said, "Where was Jesus born?" He says, "Jesus was born in a manger. And I'll tell you why, because louses like you wouldn't let him in the hotel." I was a bottle baby. After the second day, they uncorked it and let me out. I don't think my father liked me very much. He used to give me little hints. He'd wrap my lunch in a road mat. Told me to go out and play in the traffic while he was driving. Taught me how to swim in a very peculiar way. Took me out in the middle of the Mississippi River and threw me overboard. And I made it, but it was tough getting out of that sack, I'll tell you that. I don't think any of the family liked me. One day I got home from school and they had moved. I went to school back in Chicago. Anybody here from Chicago? That's a good town. Went to school back there in Chicago, and I'll never forget it. Grammar school. Teacher would say, "Mary, you make number 1 on that blackboard. Freddie, you make number 2 on that blackboard. Sadie, you pass out the papers, and we'll all do it in our seats." Remember that? One day I raised my hand and said, "Teacher, may I leave the room?" She said, "First fill the inkwell." Little Joe raised his hand and said, "Teacher, may I go?" She said, "Not now, Joe." Pretty soon a kid behind him raised his hand. She said, "I suppose you want to go too?" He said, "No, I want him to go. I can't stand it no more." later on we went to high school. Gee, one day I didn't go to school and I went to a burlesque show and I saw something I shouldn't see. My old man right in the front row. Something funny happened in that burlesque show. My mother once said, Dave, if you go to bad places, you're going to turn to stone. And while I was watching those pretty girls dancing, I began to turn. Years later, I met Sally. She was sitting at a bar with her two best friends, Haig and Hay. And she was looking very sexy. She had her skirt up high, sitting on a bar stool with a black garter, you know, in memory of those that have gone beyond, I guess. I said, honey, let's get married. She said, okay, what have I got to lose? And believe me, this kid had nothing to lose. She had been around twice. I'll never forget the night I proposed to her. She fell out of bed. Ladies and gentlemen, you will notice that many entertainers do not mention the fact that they are married during their program. And that's because they probably like to make it with the wild chicks that hang around the bars, you know. I always tell people the truth. I'm a happily married man. I have a beautiful daughter, but I cheat. So if there's any strange stuff running around, let me know, will you? I'll go. It's a beautiful watch you have. Mickey Mouse wears blue pants. Look at that, will you? The little kid came running home and said, Mommy, the kids beat me up. They called me a three-headed monster. She said, there. And the kid said, Mommy, can I go out and play? She said, what, with those holes in your pants? He said, no, with the kids next door. Mommy, I'm 13 years old and fully developed. Can I wear a bra? Shut up, will you, Ralph? There was a little kid, 6 years old, had never spoken a word. The family was obviously worried about it. They took him to specialists all over the world. Couldn't find a thing wrong with the kid. And one day they're sitting around the breakfast table. The kid looks up and he says, this cocoa stinks. And his mother said, you can talk. He said, sure I can talk. She said, why don't you say anything before? He said, up to now everything's been okay. My name is Sam Spade. I'm a dog that's been fixed. I'm a private eye. I was sitting in my private building in my private office, putting Murine in my private eye. When Effie, my secretary, walked in, she said, Sam, I quit the job, and she walked right into the washroom. Well, I followed her in there. I said, you mean to sit there and tell me you quit the job? I was sitting in my office watching the lights of the Golden Gate Bridge, which wasn't easy because my office is in Belleville. I noticed a tall girl walk by my window. I knew she was tall because I live on the third floor. She walked in carrying two .38s, and in each hand she had a revolver. She was beautiful except for a blemish in between her ears. She had peculiar ears both on the same side of her head. She had long, beautiful black hair down her back, nothing on her head, just her back. And she had B.O. so bad, last Halloween, the kids tipped her over. I met a gorgeous gal. She was sitting in the middle of Eads Bridge with her feet dangling in the water. She wore her hair in a ponytail where a pony wears it. She squatted with my cousin. My cousin has a wonderful job. He is known as an efficiency expert. He goes into businesses and shows them how to run their places a little bit better. And inside a couple of days, he really had those guys up on their toes. He raised the urinals about 4 inches. If you ever saw a ballet in a men's room, that was it. Everybody running around tippy-toes. I have an uncle who's an engineer, but they put him away last week. He's trying to build a bridge across the Mississippi lengthwise. I worry a little bit about flying. You see, we have one of the largest manufacturers of airplanes right here in St. Louis, McDonnell Aircraft. And we have a few McDonnell people here today. That's wonderful. And a lot of them stop here for a drink once in a while on the way to work. Now, I met one gal, I don't think she's very bright. She thinks a tail assembly is a company picnic. Did you ever take a non-scheduled airline ride? Kind of terrifying. You know, you miss your regular flight. So they drive you out to some hayfield someplace, you know, and you see an old beat-up plane. The pilot didn't look too good either. I thought I'd ask him a test question to see if he was sharp, you know. I said, "Pardon me, sir, what time is it?" Figuring he'd give me some aeronautical scientific answer. He said, "Well, the big hand's on the 1, and the little hand's on the 2." Then, well, I got the hell out of there. Many people are frightened with air flight, you know. They have beautiful stewardesses. They make you feel at home. I don't have 32 teeth. 2 in the back are chiclets. Give you gum, you know. They're always beautiful girls, those stewardesses. They ask you what you'd like, and then they strap you in so you can't get it. You know. They always grab a little microphone. They say, "Hello there. Welcome to Flight 402. We fly all the celebrities. We have flown such people as Wiley Post, Will Rogers, Amelia Earhart, Glenn Miller, Carol Lombard." One guy yells out, "Help, let me out of here." She says, "Don't get excited, sir. Didn't you read in the paper the other day 40 people got killed on a train?" He said, "No, lady, how did it happen?" She said, "A plane fell down and hit the train." I was kind of nervous. I got on the plane and turned to the guy next to me. I said, "Gee, the people on there look like ants." He said, "They are ants, you fool. We haven't taken off." And we're flying along pretty good. One of the engines conks out. A woman got very hysterical. She said, "Everybody pray." I said, "I don't know how to pray." She said, "Do something religious." So I took up a collection. Made $8.04. And the pilot came running out. He said, "Look, folks, we're overweighted, we're overloaded. 3 people have to give up their lives to save the rest of the passengers." An Englishman said, "They'll always be in England," and he jumped out of the plane. Frenchman said, "Vive la France," and he jumped out of the plane. Thick Texan is standing there. He said, "Remember the Alamo," and he pushed a Mexican right out of it. And getting off the plane was so embarrassing. Everybody was laughing at me. I unbuckled the wrong belt. You have to be very careful. One fellow was making his first parachute jump, and he was kind of nervous. His commanding officer said, "Charlie, don't worry about a darn thing. You jump out of the plane, you pull a ripcord. That opens up the parachute." He said, "What if it doesn't work?" So there's an auxiliary parachute. You pull the second little ripcord, that opens up the chute and will bring you down safely. There'll be a truck waiting there to take you back to the base. He said, "Wonderful." He jumps out of the plane, pulls a ripcord. Nothing happens. Pulls the second one. Nothing happens. He said, "I bet the damn truck won't even be there." One fellow was instructed to pull the parachute ripcord at the count of 3. Well, he stuttered a little bit. So he went crashing into a tree. You could hear him say, "2." I love English humor. There was an Englishman in a cab here in St. Louis. Cabbie was kind of a wise guy. He said, "Hey, Limey, you want to hear a riddle?" He said, "All right, I'll give it a go." I feel so British and I look so Yiddish. You know? He said, "All right, I'll give it a go." He said, "Well, it isn't my sister, it isn't my brother, it's a child of my father and mother. Who is it?" He said, "I give up. Who is it?" He said, "It's me." He said, "That's clever. I'll try that when I get back to England." When he gets back to London, sees a few of his buddies, he said, "Would you like to hear a little riddle I brought back from the colonies?" He said, "All right, we'll give it a try." He says, "It isn't my sister, it isn't my brother, it's a child of my father and mother. Who is it?" I said, "We give up. Who is it?" He said, "Some cab driver in St. Louis." I like old men's stories. You know, this old gentleman was having a birthday, and his 3 sons came to visit him. He says, well, boys, your daddy's 85 years old. Did you bring me a nice present? First one said, gee, Pop, I forgot all about it. And the second one said, gee, Dad, I forgot too. And the third one said, well, it kind of slipped my mind. He said, forgetfulness kind of runs in our family. I forgot to marry your mother. And one of them says, you mean where? He said, yeah, and cheap ones, too. This woman had her home decorated, the interior painted, forgot to tell her husband about it. He got home from work, went upstairs in the bedroom and started undressing, and he leaned against the freshly painted wall with his hand. He said, gee, honey, I'm sorry I lost up the paint job. She said, it's all right. The painter's a nice little old man. I'll call him up. He'll come over tomorrow morning and touch it up. It'll be like new. Next morning, she calls the painter. He shows up. He said, what can I do for you, ma'am? She said, I'd like to take you upstairs in the bedroom and show you where my husband put his hand last night. He said, well, I'm a little old for that, but I'll split a bottle of beer with you. You know, folks, you people in St. Louis have been very nice to me. I've been here for about 9 years. And I came from the old west side of Chicago. It was a poor neighborhood. We were little hoodlum kids. We played games like spin a cop. Used to find things before people lost them. Had no sled to ride on in the wintertime. Used to ride down the hill on my kid brother. I rode down the hill on my kid brother so many times he became my sister. It was a large family, had a lot of kids. We had an old mangy dog, the hair hanging over its eyes. You've seen those kind of dogs. Used to throw him a bone under the table once in a while. And one day we gave the dog a haircut. You know what? It was one of the kids. The healthiest one in the family. But Sally Poontang was my best girl. We grew up together. Went to school, I flunked sandbox. And we got married, and I never knew what happiness was until we got married, and then it was too late. Gee, I remember the wedding night, we looked like a brand new house. She was all painted up and I was plastered. Oh, how we danced on the night we were wed. We danced and we danced because the room had no bed. Had hammocks. Can't be done. She's a very suspicious woman. I come home from work early, she thinks I'm out to get something. I come home late, she thinks I already got it. She's right. And what a religious cook. Everything I get is a burnt offering or a sacrifice. And she makes pot roast taste more like roast pot. Does all my laundry, my shirts come out as white as could be, even the blue ones. But she's a wonderful gal. One day I got home from work. There she was sitting on a couch, entirely nude, looking a little guilty. My kid ran over and said, Daddy's the boogeyman really in the closet? I opened up the closet door and there was a naked guy there. And I told him off. I said, what are you scaring the kid for? One guy got home from work early, found his wife cheating with his best friend. He said, Sal, I have to, but you? Another guy got home from work early, found his wife in bed with his best friend. He said, Frank, you in bed with my wife? You're my best friend. We were in the army together. We used to play ball. Frank, will you stop while I'm talking to you? One guy heard his wife was cheating, so he got home from work early and ran around looking for the guy. Couldn't find him anywhere. Finally walked into the washroom, pulled open the shower curtain. And there was a guy entirely nude standing in the shower. He said, ha-ha, what are you doing in there? The guy said, I'm voting. Fast. One guy was in bed with his best friend's wife and the phone rang. He said, hello? All righty, okay, all right, bye. He said, who was that? She said, it was my husband. He said, where is he? She said, he's out playing gin with you. Welcome back from the men's room, sir. Could you hear me in there?
Not very good.
Well, we could hear you plain as day, I'll tell you. We used to serve food, but we don't anymore. Our food was untouched by human hands. Our chef was an ape. And, we had fine food. We had filet mignon, filet mignon. I speak all languages. I'm a Sony kid. I speak French. Jeanne d'Arc. That means there's no light in the men's room. La petite chaude. That means your fly's open. I can say brassiere in German holds him from flopping. Girdle is hinderbinder. I like golf stories. Story about a fella teed up a brand new ball, and he hit it into the creek. Teed up another brand new ball out into the woods. Hit another brand new ball out on the highway, and his caddy finally turned to him and he said, "Sir, why don't you use an old ball?" He said, "I never had one." These two fellas were out playing golf. They're very annoyed by two women playing the preceding hole. So one of them said, "I'll go talk to him. Maybe we can play through. I'll go ask him if we can kind of finish our game first." And he started walking toward him, got halfway there, came running back. He said, "Gee, I can't talk to them. One is my wife and the other is a gal I've been playing around with on the side." He said, "You go talk to him." The other guy starts walking towards him, gets halfway there, comes running back. He said, "It's a small world, ain't it?" I was playing golf the other day. I was about to hit the ball. I glanced up. I saw a nude woman running in and out the bushes. I said to the caddy, "What goes with the naked gal?" He said, "Well, there's a loony asylum up the street, and she escapes all the time, likes to run around naked." I said, "Well, who are those two fellas in the white jackets chasing her?" He said, "Those are two of the guards. They're trying to catch her to bring her back." And I said, "Well, who's the third one in the white jacket running with the 2 buckets of sand way back there?" He said, "Well, he caught her yesterday, and that's his handicap." I would like to do a little song that I wrote the words to. I didn't write the music, I just wrote the words, and I like to do it for you because you've been so nice. Hope you like it. I wrote it. It looks like rain in Cherry Blossom Lane. In Cherry Blossom Lane, it looks like rain. It looks like rain in Cherry Blossom Lane. In Cherry Blossom Lane, it looks like rain. It looks like rain in Cherry Blossom Lane. In Cherry Blossom Lane, it looks like rain. It looks like rain in Cherry Blossom Lane. In Cherry Blossom Lane, it looks like... Kind of gets you, doesn't it? Makes you sick, that's what it is. You know the words yet? Will you sing it with me? Here we go. It looks like rain in Cherry Blossom Lane. In Cherry Blossom Lane, it looks like rain. They know it, they know it. It looks like rain in Cherry Blossom Lane. In Cherry Blossom Lane, it looks like rain. You're sicker than I am. It looks like rain in Cherry Blossom Lane. In Cherry Blossom Lane, it looks like rain. It looks like rain in Cherry Blossom Lane. In Cherry Blossom Lane, it looks like rain. It looks like rain in Cherry Blossom Lane. It looks like rain. Will it be a hit?